Our first witness is Carol M. Swain. She is currently Professor of Political Science and Professor of Law at Vanderbilt University and a member of the James Madison Society at Princeton University, where she was a professor prior to going to Vanderbilt. She received a BA from Roanoke College and an MA from Virginia Polytechnical Institute and State University. She holds a PhD from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and in 2000 was awarded an MLS from Yale Law School. Professor Swain is a multiple award-winning author and an expert on immigration and race relations. Professor Swain is a member of the Tennessee Advisory Committee to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission and the Advisory Board of the National Endowment for the Humanities. We thank you for being here, and if you will please proceed. And if we have time, we'll ask you questions. If you can stay a little bit longer, we'll ask questions when we get back to the votes. But please go on, Professor Swain.
Thank you, Chairman, for inviting me. I am a professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, and as the Chairman stated, a member of the Tennessee Advisory Committee to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, a member of the National Endowment for the Humanities Council, and also the editor of Debating Immigration, a book that was published by Cambridge University Press in 2007. Today, I focus on the unemployment situation of African Americans and native-born Hispanics, two groups particularly hard hit by the harsh economic times. After providing unemployment figures for all Americans, I focus on native-born Black and Hispanics. I conclude that there's a critical need for Democrats and Republicans to work together to address the needs of all native-born workers before pursuing amnesty for illegal immigrants and new guest worker programs that will increase the number of low-skilled, low-wage workers in the population. In the current economic environment, many Americans are suffering from unemployment, job displacement, and stagnant or declining wages. But no group suffers more than native-born Blacks and Hispanics who have a high school education or less. In April 2009, the Pew Hispanic Center estimated that there were 11.9 million illegal immigrants residing in the United States. Data from March 2008 showed that 8.3 million of these were illegal immigrants holding jobs that could have gone to eligible American workers. Consider our situation. In the third quarter of 2009, the overall unemployment rate for Americans was at 9.5%. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics brought a measure of employment, a measure that is called the U6, paints an even gloomier picture for all groups of Americans. The U6 includes the unemployed people who would like to have a job but have not looked recently, those who hold part-time positions but who would like to work full-time. Using U6 as our measure, we find that the overall employment rate for native workers is a whopping, the unemployment rate for native workers is a whopping 15.9%. Native workers with less than a high school education have an overall unemployment rate of 20.5% and a U6 rate of 32.4%. Now that represents a lot of people out of work. If we look at the unemployment rate for young native-born Americans 18 through 29 with only a high school education, their unemployment rate is 19% with a U6 rate of 31.2%. When we turn to racial and ethnic minorities, the picture looks uglier. Native-born Blacks with less than a high school education have an unemployment rate of 28.8% and a U6 measure of 42.2%. Almost half of the people are in this category who would like to be working full-time are either unemployed or they're underemployed. As is always the case, young people are the most affected. Young Native blacks with a high school education have an unemployment rate of 27.1% and the U6 rate of 39.8%. And it's this group of native-born workers, especially black men, who are most adversely impacted by competition from unauthorized workers. And when we look at the rates for Hispanics, the picture only improves slightly. Both blacks and Hispanics are suffering greatly, but Hispanics fare slightly better than blacks. Native-born Hispanics with less than a high school education have an unemployment rate of 23.2% and a U6 rate of 35.6%. Young Hispanics with a high school degree do better than blacks. Their overall employment rate is 20.9%. Their U6 rate is 33.9%. What do we make of these numbers? It should be clear that the unemployment levels for blacks and native-born Hispanics are unacceptable for American society and are in immediate need of redress. Racial and ethnic minorities are overrepresented among Americans suffering from high levels of unemployment, foreclosures of homes, substandard education, housing, and health care. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and Hispanic advocacy groups have called on President Obama to pour more stimulus money into the creation of new jobs that might help to alleviate the situation. Many of these same minority advocacy groups have demanded amnesty for millions of undocumented immigrants and new guest worker programs that will surely increase the competition that native-born blacks and Hispanics already face. This approach to the problem is sheer madness. We need Democrats and Republicans, members of the Congressional Black and Congressional Hispanic caucuses, to join forces in pressing for the enforcement of existing immigration laws and regulations that are already on the books. We need Democrats and Republicans, members of the Congressional Black and Congressional Hispanic caucuses, to join forces in pressing for the enforcement of existing immigration laws and regulations already on the books. Existing immigration laws make it a crime for employers to hire unauthorized workers knowingly. By enforcing existing laws and regulations, we can immediately provide new opportunities for native-born workers without waiting for immigration reform to make its way through Congress. We need a multifaceted approach to provide incentives for compliance. Such incentives include workplace raids and stiffer sanctions for employers who break the law. We also need to go one step further. We need both to encourage and demand that state, federal, and local authorities take aggressive steps to ensure that all businesses, public and private, participate in the federal E-Verify program. E-Verify is a highly effective program that should be made mandatory and expanded across the nation. If we expand and mandate E-Verify, we make it possible for more native-born workers to achieve the American dream for themselves and their families. We make it possible for more native-born Americans to achieve the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that our forefathers saw as a fundamental right. Ultimately, our success as a nation will depend on how much we value and fight to preserve the rule of law, the sovereignty of our nation, and the hope it offers our people as one nation under God. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Professor Swain.